Hey, this is Frank with Big Man Tech, and today I want to talk to you about something that a lot of people have been talking about it, but I want to come at it from a different perspective as somebody who is more of a gamer. And what that product is the GMMK Pro custom keyboard. All right, so here we go. So I know there's been a lot of videos going up about the GMMK Pro custom keyboard, and I wanted to do one from the perspective of someone who considered himself a gamer first. So I only stumbled across the custom keyboard building community a few months ago. One day I was scrolling through YouTube and came across a guy who had a stream of himself building a custom keyboard, and I thought that was kind of interesting because up until that point I had only seen I'd only known of custom PC building, which I've done quite a few myself, but I'd never even thought that the custom built keyboards was a thing. So I thought it was pretty interesting. So as I started to do more research, I quickly learned that this was a really somewhat insane hobby, and you can go really deep in the rabbit hole. So first, some background on keyboards in general. So most people are used to seeing the full-size keyboard with, arrow keys, number pad, the whole 9 yards. So that would be basically your standard size. And then they have what they call a TKL or 10 keyless, which means it does not have the number key on there. So take your standard keyboard and just chop the number pad off. And those are the two most popular ones that you'll see from, every major brand out there. You can pick them up just about everywhere. Anywhere that sells keyboards will have both, usually at least the full, well, everybody will have a full size, and almost everybody also will carry at least one or two of the 10 keyless ones. But in the custom world, they have a few other sizes, such as, which is more popular, even some of the gamer companies have started doing 60% keyboards, which is you cut the keyboard down and cut off everything from the arrow keys over. So you're basically looking at physically just the size of the alphabetical keys and shift modifiers, and of course the number row. On some of them, they actually have the option to still give you some of the keys. They're just not physical. You'll have to hit the function key to get to that, what they call a second layer of keys, but you can get to all of those if you, again, hit the function key, and you have access to basically everything you've had in the past on a standard size keyboard. Then the next biggest size would be the 65%, which is slightly bigger, obviously, than a 60%. It gives you back your arrow keys and a couple of your other keys, such as page up, page down, and possibly home key or one other key besides that. And then you get to something such as the GMMK Pro, which is a 75% keyboard, which at that point it's almost the same size as a TKL. It's minus maybe 3 or 4 keys at that point, but you get a function row again, dedicated function row key, dedicated arrow keys, and 4 other keys along the side, usually page up, page down, print, home, or print screen and home and maybe a delete key as well, as a dedicated key as opposed to having to do function rows, that sort of thing. So like all things custom keyboards means that you can buy all your parts individually and get them custom to exactly how you want it, which does a lot to change the feel and sound of the keyboard, which is a big thing with the custom keyboard community. So typically you'll have to do what's called a group buy, where a bunch of people a group of people, technically is why it's called a group buy, are willing to purchase the same keyboard or switches or keycaps that you're looking for to put in your keyboard. And typically what ends up happening is you'll pay either majority or the full price of the keyboard up front and have to wait 6 months to even a year before the product is even made and shipped to you. So that's a little interesting. That was foreign to me and something I'd never heard of before all of this. And yeah, that was not something I was willing to do. Without going into too much gory detail about it, the basic parts of your keyboard consist of your case, your PCB, also known as a printed circuit board, the switches, the plate, and your keycaps. Not necessarily in that order. So when you order a kit, you usually will get your case, your PCB, and a plate of some type. Most cases will give you aluminum, but your choices are typically aluminum, brass, or polycarbonate. Then you got to worry, once you've pick that portion out, then you got to go out and look for your switches. Switches come in a few different flavors. The three basic ones are linear, which is my favorite, Go Team Linear, which are the smoother switches. Then you have tactile switches, which have a slight bump as you press the key in. And then you have what are known as the clicky switches. Those are the type of switches that will get you killed if you have somebody who works really close to you. Oh, almost forgot the stabilizers, which there's a lot of different versions of stabilizers, but they're all just basically stabilizers, also known as stabs in the community. And you're going to want to take what they call lube, or just lubricant of some kind, for your stabilizers or stabs and your switches to make them a little smoother and adjust the feel for them. So obviously, for those who are already in the community, when I stumbled across the custom keyboard community, did some research, went looking around, and there weren't a whole lot of places that you could even get a readily available keyboard building kit, or parts for the, rather, I should say. There's only one or two that generally have something in stock on a regular basis, which ended up leading me to Glorious. And their motto was trying to make the gaming community, or making gaming accessories affordable, because they were tired of dealing with the major name brands just jacking prices and putting things out of reach for a lot of people. And with Glorious, they pretty much have a one-stop shop for everything you need to actually get your keyboard built. So they have all the switches, they have custom plates, they even have replaceable knobs for their specific keyboard, they sell the keycaps, they sell the lube, they even have lubing stations to help you get all this, get all your stuff lubed up. They sell, obviously, the brushes you need, they even sell openers. From what I hear, their openers are kind of meh, but whatever. Again, I watched a bunch of videos a few videos from the big names in the community who had been sent out kits from Glorious with basically the full assortment of their products, which is also part of how I figured out what I was going to do. So what I ended up doing was ordering their black version, getting what they call white knob, because they call it white, but it's actually a silver if you get it in person, from what I understand. So I ended doing that. Then for my switches, I ended up getting got the switches from them, and my keycaps from them. So I went with the green Rainforest keycaps and the Gateron silver switches. So when I placed that order, it took quite a while for the keyboard and case to come, but my switches and keycaps came early, and I had already ordered some lube and a lube station and the opener. Luckily, that stuff shipped early, because after watching the video, I had a pretty good idea that I wanted to try and lube my switches and my stabilizers and things. So when they came, I went about the arduous task, and I say arduous because I had, for a 75% keyboard, I needed roughly 84 switches. I forget the exact number off the top of my head. However, trying to open those switches up and the time it took to loop them for a beginner to this whole community, it took almost 6.5 hours for me to do it. I'm sure there's plenty others that can do it faster, but that was my experience. But at the end, I think it was worth it. They feel a lot better, and I actually have some leftovers that you can press down and hear the difference in between. And maybe I'll add that to the end of the video. Also, in doing my research, I'd heard some people had issues with the stock stabilizers that come built with this board. Some boards don't come with stabilizers. This board does. They call them their GOAT stabilizers, but apparently they're not that great. At least that's what everybody else in the community said. So I went ahead and ordered myself some Duroc V2s, and there had been some issues in the past with, I guess, the first releases of the board, where the Duroc V2s didn't fit so well in the board. Especially with the metal plates, the aluminum and brass. I switched my plate out for the polycarbonate plate, and I was able to get that put together I had to give it a little bit of force, but nothing too crazy. There were stories of people having to get out a Dremel or a file just to get the stabs to fit in the plate. But again, that was not my experience. So one of the first things I noticed about my board after I got it out and when it first showed up, this thing is heavy. So on the stock out of the box without having switches and keycaps in, this thing weighs in at 3.5 pounds. So for a board that's only a 75%, that's pretty heavy. The only other board that I've ever felt that was even close to that is my pre-built Razer Black Widow Elite, which comes in at 3.1 pounds. And again, that's a pre-built, and it's 100, and that's got all the 104 keys. This is a 75% keyboard. So that, yeah, this thing is pretty heavy even before putting all your switches and keycaps in. So it's been a week since I've since I built my keyboard and been using it again, obviously for that the whole time. And a couple times I pulled out the Huntsman Mini just for comparison's sake. And I got to say, I really do like the GMMK Pro. For me, as a beginner into the whole custom keyboard, I think this is a great board, and it's a pretty good value considering some of the boards that you get out there in the custom keyboard world can run up to, I've seen just cases alone that cost $350, and if you've got to get something from one of the group buys that were on limited runs that are kind of hard to get or not available anymore, you'll see it on the aftermarket world, and they'll be $1,000 or more. So for me and for my money and the time I spent with my keyboard and building it, I had a lot of fun, and I would definitely try it again at some point. I don't know when. Maybe I might just swap out the switches and keycaps on this one, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, here's a typing test, and thanks, guys.